Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time around we had Image of the Fendal. What was that one about?
I have no idea. Once again, folks, let me remind you, I am currently in rehearsals for a territorial Christmas carol, trying to learn my lines. We open in 3 weeks. I also had auditions for a show I'm directing, starting in rehearsal start in January, going up in February, so my mind is all over the place.
Yeah, so Image of the Fendal was there was this place that the Doctor and Leela went to, and they were conducting experiments on a skull that was older than it should be.
That's true.
That turned out to be the skull of the Fendal, which was an alien from the 5th planet in the solar system that Gallifrey is from. And it was destroyed, but the skull managed to survive, and that possessed someone and created new Fendaline, and then they realized that salt kills it. They did that until eventually the Doctor caused like some sort of implosion to destroy the Fendaline, and then he took the skull and he was gonna go throw it into a supernova.
Wow. I vaguely remember that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically where we left it. There was also the whole thing of like the cult that was trying to summon the Fendaline, and the old woman who had her connection to the old ways and stuff.
I'm lost. I am totally lost. I seriously don't even remember that.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. It happens. So, but yeah, today we're moving on to the Sunmakers. Yeah, I think this technically marks this is about the halfway point, I think, of the Tom Baker era, and I think this is also the noticeable shift in tone in the Tom Baker era.
Yeah, several people have been talking about that.
Yeah.
Robert Holmes left.
Yeah.
And so now we're going to see more eccentricity and comedy rather than, dark and dreary and horror.
Yeah, which, I mean, it doesn't mean it's going to be bad. It could be interesting. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it will be a departure from what we've seen in this era, definitely. Someone also told me yesterday, I was doing a live stream about Doctor Who. Someone said we've got about a year and a half left of classic Doctor Who. So it seems like it should be so much more than that. But honestly, I guess once we're done with 4, we're going to start rolling through these Doctors very quickly. And I mean, after this one, there's only 3 left. So there's 5, 6, and 7, and a rewatch of the 8th Doctor's movie, and that's about it. And then, I guess, because, I mean, what else are you going to do on a Saturday? I might as well put you through modern Doctor Who, too.
Yeah.
So, unless you want to listen to 8th Doctor audio dramas.
What's the phrase that they use now? That's a hard pass. I didn't get into the audio dramas. I the novel that you bought me, the First Doctor and the French Revolution, I enjoyed reading it. I didn't enjoy the listening to it, though.
Yeah. Well, and those 3 stories varied wildly, too.
Yeah.
So, because like every 5 months or so, I just kind of go back to those videos and sort of giggle to myself because they're just kind of funny to listen to again. But yeah, it was just such an interesting thing because we had the Holy Terror, which was an interesting story with the talking penguin, and then
Frobisher.
Yeah, and then Damaged Goods, which I still don't understand to this day.
Is that the one with the vampires?
Yes.
Okay.
Or whatever vampire thing it was. Not traditional Dracula vampires, but just sort of life force taking things, and the giant N-form squid monster creature and stuff. I don't know. But then we had the Chimes of Midnight, which was fun, at least.
Yeah, that was a kind of a weird little time warp mystery. Like people kept disappearing or something like that.
Yeah.
Or dying. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the most interesting. And it was also, of those 3, it was my favorite story for the Doctor, because I felt like the 8th Doctor was really involved in that, where the 6th and 7th Doctors really weren't. So maybe I'll go through some of those Eighth Doctor audio stories, but yeah, probably not. We'll probably just go from the end of the Seventh Doctor to the movie to Christopher Eccleston. We'll just go from there. Yeah. So,
well, I'm looking forward to that because the one episode I've seen of Eccleston, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So, and eventually
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Where did we put Scream of the Shalka? Is that non-canonical?
Yeah, that's like it was the original version of the Ninth Doctor. It was supposed to be. It's like I guess in the idea was that Paul McGann's Eighth Doctor would have regenerated into that, but then when they were making the new revival series, they just didn't want what was his name, the guy that played
Richard Grant.
Yeah, they did not want him to play the Ninth Doctor, so they just decanonized that, and eventually they stuck in the War Doctor anyway. So yeah, but we'll go through that. We'll just go 7, 8 with the movie, then 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 10, 14, so on. So, and I know I say that knowing full well that I'm probably wrong about that counting, but don't get me started on that. Don't get me started on that. I've made it clear that I oppose it on principle, but they'll probably be good episodes anyway. Yeah. Anywho, the Sunmakers. I'm not sure what to expect from this. Like it sounds like, I don't know, the Sunmakers sounds like some sort of like ancient Aztec thing to me. I don't know why. It just sort of sounds like that. So,
well, we've had both the Aztecs and the Mythmakers, which was ancient Greece. So, I mean, it's always nice when we see even a semi-historical, but I suspect this is not one of them.
Probably not. So,
the TARDIS arrives on Pluto.
So no.
Okay.
Well, hey, Pluto's a good planet, and it counts as a planet. I don't want to hear anything Neil deGrasse Tyson. So, this has been an odd opening.
Well, my mind is completely wiped clean, other than my lines. I got my first act lines down pretty well. Now I got to work on the second act.
Yeah.
Am I in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come? You're about to show me shadows of things that will be in the future. Is that not so? Will you not speak to me?
Yeah. And luckily, it sounds like you're not having to do a really thick Southern accent.
No.
Because otherwise, that'd just be very strange.
Yeah. Set in Oklahoma Territory in 1889, and I'm fortunately not having to do an Oklahoma accent. That would be really, really painful.
Yeah. So, I was going to make a joke which was going to be slight political commentary, but I don't feel like doing that. So, why don't we go ahead and jump into the Sunmakers?
What a good idea.
Well,
Ezra Haid is waiting for the death taxes.
Yes, I have them here.
Pay them at the gatherer's office.
alrighty then. It's going to be one of those episodes.
Oh, it is wood, Your Honor.
Of a kind called mahogany. I don't suppose you've ever seen wood before, have you?
Mahogany.
Never.
I would encourage your supervisor to allow you increased output.
But, Your Honor, I already work a double shift now. I have only my 3 hours sleep time away from the foundry.
21 hours a week. You must manage without sleep time until the death is paid.
It will kill me.
Take Q capsule.
But, Your Honor, the high medical tax on Q capsules...
Citizen Cordo, you complain too much. Thank the company all warm and fed.
Praise the company.
Here we go.
Well, seems like they're doing a commentary on something today. I'm just not sure what.
You work 16 tons, and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt.
There.
Affirmative. Check, Master.
What?
Machine mind computes mate in 6 moves.
Rubbish! We're still in the solar system. Pluto?
Pluto?
Yes, Pluto.
The 9th planet was, until the discovery of Cassius, believed to be the outermost body in the system.
Leela,
10th planet.
Shut up.
Shh.
K-9, you can tell me later.
Affirmative. Its distance from the sun is...
I think you and I should take a WALK.
W-A-L-K?
Look,
Walk, mistress.
I know.
What we have to say to our
No,
dog.
no, no, you're not coming. You stay here.
Entreat, master.
No.
Are the good?
No. Pluto's no place for a...
I'm sorry, K9. We won't be long.
The tax guy there is somewhat reminiscent of ancient Egypt. That's the old war bonnet, war helmet.
What is he saying, Doctor? I do not understand.
Can't make ends meet. Probably too many economists in the government.
These taxes, they are like sacrifices to tribal gods?
Well, roughly speaking, but paying tax is more painful.
Well, then the people should rise up and slaughter their oppressors.
Well,
Yeah.
if little Cordos are all typical, they haven't any spirit left for fighting.
Now, in the early 70s, there was also the first oil crisis, which probably also raised a whole bunch of problems like this in the UK.
He's turned again, man. Where's it now?
It looks like one of the service subways, Your Honor.
No. How does he get down a ladder?
No.
Unless, like the Daleks, he's learned how to levitate.
A little task for you, Doctor.
Oh, good.
Here's a consume card. You got it off an Ajax. It's made out for 1,000 Telmar.
1,000 Telmar. Stolen?
Credit card.
What do you think?
Stolen.
It hasn't been used, so it's not on the computer record.
Strangely enough, credit cards were just becoming a thing at this point.
What do these Ajax look like if I'm pretending to be one? I ask me.
Well, you're not going to fit that in your wallet.
If you're not back by this time, the girl dies.
I'd like to see you try.
That even looks like the original Bank America card, which later became the Visa. Let's see who the Gatherer is. He looked very familiar. Hey, Richard Leach. His voice sounds very familiar. You know, he's one of those wonderful, great character actors that has been in everything.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, that is part one. I mean, you know, for the whole thing of like, oh, you're going to get a very serious tone shift, and it's like, well, I mean, I guess it's not gothic. It's still interesting, though.
Yeah. And again, the thing about it, and it's a Robert Holmes, who's very good at doing both the serious and the comedic there, is that the Gatherer is not our standard, I am right and everybody is wrong. He's actually played quite flamboyantly. Again, the costume seems a little weird considering that everybody else is in, you know, industrial revolution, not industrial, but like mid-20th century industrial kind of stuff. But again, the fact that he's, as people have pointed out before when we did what was that other one with the miners?
Robots of Death.
Robots of Death, yeah. You know, he's obviously the elite, and so his Egyptian hat, his cloak, I mean, sets him apart from everybody else. But it does not seem to fit in with the rest of the costuming. Not that that's a bad thing at this point, but, you know, again, as a director, I would have altered that just a bit.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with it, though, is at the very least, it does work because he is set apart from everybody. They always call him, you know, Your Honor and everything, and with how much taxes, I guess, he collects, it does sort of make sense, even if maybe even he isn't that high up. He certainly seems like the guy who would think he's that high up, and would dress that way.
Yeah, wants everyone else to think he's that high up too.
Yeah, it would be the greatest twist though if he was embezzling a little bit so that he could afford this sort of outfit.
Yeah.
So, but even, I mean, down to it also fits in with his mahogany desk that he has. That it's like, oh yes, look at this guy. He's so, you know, big and important and everything. So.
And we're assuming that this has to be obviously in the future, aside from the fact that they're on Pluto, but the fact that they're talking about there are no trees. You know, that they've apparently built all this stuff on Pluto with making their own sun generating thing, but they haven't been able to construct anything that is organic because everything's made out of concrete. And the fact that they talk about, ooh, you've got an actual wooden desk, that's really cool. So again, interesting. Again, we've seen the 10th planet, which was the mirror image of the 9th planet before, so it makes you wonder, is this before the First Doctor or after the First Doctor?
Yeah. Well, the 10th planet was a mirror of Earth, specifically.
Oh.
Yeah, it was just like upside down, I think.
Oh, all right.
So, yeah. That was Mondas?
Mondas, yes.
Yeah. Where the Cybermen were originally from, so...
By the way, don't know if we ever said this back then, but I think they probably called it Mondas because in European languages like French and Spanish, monde, M-O-N-D-E in French, and mundo in Spanish literally means the world.
El mundo!
I guess the Sunmakers also make sense for a title now. They do make suns. I mean, dude, it's not cocaine. Like, ease off.
As the accountant.
What did they get you for?
Curiosity.
That's a crime here?
Yes.
Well, yeah, it kills
I was
cats.
an executive. Or pentoselinic methyl hydrate. What? You know something about chemistry?
Enough to recognize an anxiety-inducing agent when I smell one.
No. It eliminates airborne infections.
You run a purely fiscal operation.
No, Pinnacle. A 5% in...
This fiscal period, we're aiming for a 7% increase in the gross planetary product.
An achievable target to Colossus. Only if there is no dissension. With increased manpower, I...
Then I shall go alone.
I'll come, Leela.
You, Cordo?
I know I'm not much help. I'm not brave and I can't fight, but... Well, at least I can show you the way.
Cordo, you are the bravest man here. Come.
You just gotta find K9 and you'll be in good shape.
I said, do you know how long we've been sitting here without any... Are you deaf or... Is he deaf or something?
We don't count anymore. We're just material for processing.
Ah. Well, I'm glad he isn't deaf. I would
That's not gonna fit.
Leave it in too long, it goes fizzy. I wouldn't touch that if I were you. I said I wouldn't touch that if I were you.
He rewired it.
Are you sure he wasn't
Good job.
deaf?
Why should I be frightened?
There is a chemical inhibitor in the air, mistress. I have analyzed it.
What does that mean, K9?
It means you feel fear because it affects the human nervous system and debilitates the will.
You mean there's nothing to be afraid of, just something in the air?
Affirmative.
Right. All right, K9. Bite.
Mistress.
Stun him.
Affirmative.
Learn code K9.
Would you care for a leaf?
Oh, thank you, thank you. Thank you.
Just a leaf.
Here, K9?
I wonder if they have to do those cuts because they literally have to physically move K9.
Maybe.
Are you fit enough to move?
Oh, yes, I think so. The treatment had only just started when you came in.
Corridor clear, mistress.
Leela, you'd better come with us. Come on.
Starting a new rebellion. Wonder if this is out at the airport.
It's no good. They've seen us.
They're so threatening. I mean, they are. They have guns, but still. Alrighty. Well, that is part 2 with the introduction of the Collector. The guy just studying the thing so intently. So
He's literally a parody of a James Bond villain. I mean,
Yeah.
that's Ernst Blofeld, but as if done by Mike Myers and Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery.
Yeah. You know, with all of this, with tax collectors and accountants and everything, I just want to see, like, Saul Goodman coming in and messing with these people, you know?
Yeah.
Just get them on every legal loophole you can. So, yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious. I'll be curious if that whole thing about the air is going to come back. That little moment where it's like, why is she afraid? And it's because there's just something in the air.
Well, they've been mentioning that back even in the first episode. That's how they control everybody, by inducing this fear so that they will not rise up against the elite.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, seriously, when you think about it, that literally goes all the way back to the Roman Empire, bread and circuses. You know, you've got 1 million people in Rome who are, you know, literally destitute, and you have this elite, and the only way you can keep the destitute from rising up and killing and eating the elite is to give them bread and circuses. You know, keep them occupied, keep their bellies at least partially full, and give them entertainment, and they'll forget about their, incredibly squalid lives.
Yeah. I'm also curious if the Doctor knows that, I guess he was tagged by the tracker through the leaf that he ate. It seems like something he would pick up on.
Yeah. But I wonder if it was that, or if it was in the bag of Telmars that he was given somehow.
Maybe.
But you begin to wonder if he knows that he was tracked.
Yeah. So.
Get them, K9.
So, yeah, my friend just got zapped. I'll go and do it too.
I wish he just paused and then just started to back up slowly.
Forward. I said forward.
Perhaps I had better take over, Leela.
All right.
We will forego the women drivers joke here.
I will have the gun.
In fairness, she literally can't drive. But she can murder.
Run over them?
Stop!
Leela's been hit!
Oh, jeez.
She's outnumbered, Excellency.
What?
I can't get over his voice. In his Davros chair.
All work units are numbered at birth. 005, the Time Lords. Specifically one known as the Doctor.
005, Time Lords. Oligarchic rulers of the planet Gallifrey.
Wow, you have information on that?
Grade 3 in the last market survey. Its potential for commercial development being correspondingly low.
It's true. If we all act together, there's nothing the company can do.
If we all act together.
Yes, let's fight the company.
Right, yes.
What is this company? Can anyone tell me that?
Well, it's just a company.
It's the sun.
Yes.
A profit.
Yes.
But who gets the profit, huh? Where does it go?
They're not questions we've ever thought about. I mean, there's no answer.
Do they have competitors?
Wouldn't it be interesting to find the answer?
Well, yes, if there was.
Order.
You know what's nice? I know why they're rebelling.
Your hugeness sent for me.
You ordered a prisoner to be released from correction today. Why?
I can explain your amplification. He is
Every
a
time.
conspirator sent here to foment rebellion.
Station extra security units in all the subways around the exchange.
Extra units, your globosity?
The computer character analysis.
One more time, just for luck.
Duplication quite unnecessary.
Casually, Michael Jackson leaning on a wall.
We could have offered more victims, made a bigger show of it. And of course, when they can see it all for nothing on the bulletin screens.
Not the same thing at all. No sense of a shared experience. I fear the Doctor is going to disappoint us.
It's weirdly a commentary
Your
about
scanners
streaming
haven't
movies.
detected him?
Release that heat-blasting event drive.
If you don't, we'll all die. Look at the dial.
10 more seconds.
Alrighty. So, the steamer. Are you as confused as I am about how it works?
No, we used to have one here at the house. It's a device where you pour water into it.
Yes.
There's a heating element.
Right.
Then you put your vegetables in it, and
Yes.
it steams them and makes them softer.
It's literally just hot steam.
Yeah. You can steam rice the same way, but the idea here, of course, is that it's simply going to essentially boil her alive.
Okay, then. I was just making sure, because as they kept saying steamer, I was like, steamer. Okay, what are we? Are they gonna drown her? But then at the end, I was like, okay, wait. The heating is like, okay, so it's gonna burn her or boil her or something.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I was just making sure.
It's the difference between putting your vegetables in a pot of water and then let the water boil, and this way it's kind of a flash frying, flash boiling.
All right. They're doing that to Leela.
Yes, because the doctor's going into the chamber to try to get her out.
Yes, because that's what they came up with for an execution, is steaming people to death. So
well, there's so much of this that is almost tongue in cheek. I mean, seriously, the what's he called? Not Haid, but
the collector.
Collector. I understand that Robert Holmes knew he had a story that could be very, very overly melodramatic. And although he's literally pushing the limits of black comedy, that is making it, less of a, painful, oh, Lord, it's just, it's so overly done. So now, again, like us sitting here, we're going, this borders on silliness.
Yeah.
But we also see, for example, you got, seriously, your cliffhanger there is she's about to be boiled to death, flash boiled to death, and the doctor has 10 seconds to get her out. Obviously, he will. I mean, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
But still, on a week-to-week basis, for kids, 11, 12 years old, this is, I don't know that they would see the humor, but I think that the adults, anyone who's literally 16 years old or older, would see this and go, okay, I see what they're trying to do. They're trying to not yuck it up. They're seriously not trying to add in a whole bunch of bad puns like they were doing in the James Bond films in this time period. But there's just enough of an overdone characterization with the collector, with the gatherer, and some of the others, that you can tolerate the melodramatic underneath everything else.
Yeah. Well, and also just the fact that, I can see how kids would like Haid and the collector, and especially, I mean, Haid going out and, rounding the corner with his gun and his assistant. It looks like some, Looney Tunes cartoon, especially the way he's dressed and them, all this evil stuff with the evil voice. But the thing that works is that while for kids that would be, fun and goofy and stuff like that, the dialogue is making that work for the adults, especially just how many, we should have counted how many names he uses for the collector. So it's hilarious just every time it's a new one, and you never expect which one he's going to say. So
didn't he call him your globalocity at one point?
Yeah, something like that. your colossalus or something like that. So yeah, all of that is really interesting. And I'm liking, it's sort of an interesting thing. I was kind of talking about this on the last Doctor Who live stream I did, that one thing with Tom Baker's Doctor is he's good. I like him, and I like how he can be sort of the detached alien. Sometimes I think he's a little too detached, especially sometimes his interactions with Leela, and even a couple interactions I feel like with K9. But in this one, I feel like they've kind of gotten that down a bit better. So I don't know, or maybe it's the underlying sass that he used to have is, well, it's still there. Definitely. It's not too intense. So
a couple episodes back, and some of the commenters even said that he was very gruff and very rude, both to her and to K9. And again, I don't know if that was a product of the script, or it was Tom Baker who was angry the fact that he had to have a companion or whatever. But he seems to have settled into it a little bit better now.
Yeah, from what I've from what I've heard from comments and the live stream chat, is that Tom Baker was getting a bit of an ego about being the Doctor, which, I mean, we already saw he wanted to just carry the show without a companion, and they forced him to have Leela. But I think someone said the story was like he was being so rude to Louise Jameson, and it was during Horror of Fang Rock that she just told him off completely. And after that, they actually got along better. You know, after they had that confrontation, then they respected each other and they were able to work. So yeah, probably, you know, by this is story number 4, they finally settled into that sort of partnership. Yeah. So yeah, and I know this episode also definitely I do feel the shift in tone that everyone was saying, but it's definitely still a good, interesting story. Yeah. So, and so far it's working, because the other story we had that was more similar to this would be The Invisible Enemy, and while that one was, you know, interesting enough, that had a lot of pacing issues, and I'm not finding that in this one. Yeah. So. But then again, it's Robert Holmes. So
there was that one, I almost thought it was a tongue-in-cheek commentary when the Doctor went back and did the second loop for the video cameras, and K9 said that was unnecessary, Master. Wondering if that's a commentary on how much padding they sometimes have to put into these, because they don't really fill out a 4-parter or a 6-parter.
Maybe. That would be pretty funny. So, and stuff like that, where K9's like, you know, redundancy is pointless, Master, and he just kind of looks at K9. It's like, some of that I'm okay with, but it's some of the animosity that I've seen with the 4th Doctor that I just don't really care for. Yeah. So
I'll see if the discriminator can be adjusted, Your Immensity.
You know, on top of all the makeup they have on this guy, I hate his eyebrows, specifically.
Yeah, no one else seems to be... I mean, he's almost like an alien.
Yeah.
Compared to everybody else.
You think the Doctor got out in time?
If he didn't, he wouldn't have known much about it.
That guy is so tall.
Gave him his 2 minutes. K9.
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 K9, where are you?
Master.
Oh, there you are, listen.
Speaking of padding.
I want to give my friends all the help they need, you understand?
Unpaid overtime. To be introduced immediately for all work grades. See to it.
Without fail, monstrosity, without fail.
What is it?
I will introduce a swinging output link penalty tax in my next monthly budget, Your Corpulence.
The Doctor must be behind it. I sense the vicious doctrine of egalitarianism hate.
Everyone knows your senses are infallible, Your Promontory.
Have the 2 guards reported from main control yet?
You're just having fun with that chair now.
I will instigate action myself, Your Aggrandizement. Instantly, immediately.
It's kind of pacing, I guess.
I guess.
Nobody works today.
Nobody works today.
It's mutiny against the company. You've just earned yourself an early death day citizen.
I wonder if, like, this is just the staff around the office.
It's your sleep time. You will go to sleep and stay asleep until I tell you to wake up. I tell you to wake up. Wake up!
How did you do that?
What's that? It's just a knack. You've either got it or you haven't.
Man, I could use that at night.
I fear the situation is worsening, Your Grossness.
Laxity, hate, grinding oppression of the masses is the only policy that pays dividends.
Your orotundity, my Magro gods are outnumbered by the rabble.
Long live the revolution.
It's the gatherer! It's the gatherer!
I order you to leave.
Stone him. There's tiny pebbles everywhere.
Keep back. Don't you dare! I'm an official of the company!
Throw him over? Oh my gosh. Jeez!
Oh, an excellent outfit to work for, Doctor. Progress from medium to senior management level can be remarkably rapid for the talented executive.
Yes, cut the sales talk. Where's the head office?
Usurious.
I might have guessed from your squiddy little eyes.
Usury is the
You are acquainted with our species?
overtaxing of profits and loans.
Do you bleed?
And then tax the life out of them. I mean, to recover your capital costs.
Quite so, quite so. Then, when the resources of Mars were exhausted in their turn, we created a new environment for them here on Pluto.
It's a bit of a
What
jump.
about the 4 intervening planets?
No, they weren't considered viable by our engineers. Many of our other operations produce a much higher return with less labor.
So he is an alien.
Yeah.
Sucking leech. You won't stop till you own the entire galaxy, will you, huh? Don't you think commercial imperialism is as bad as military conquest?
We have tried.
It's a Ferengi.
But the use
Yeah,
of
basically.
economic power is far more effective.
Down to being tiny and goofy.
It will be quelled. Business will continue as usual.
Oh, wake up. Wake up. Look at the facts.
Oh.
I know the facts.
Come on.
You,
Within 10 seconds, everyone in the city will be dead.
except you.
Exactly. I do not breathe air.
No. But this chap at my shoulder, he breathes air. What?
Kill him!
Don't be a fool.
God, kill him!
Oh! I was wondering if we were gonna do that.
Negative surplus. Inflationary spiral uncheckable. Negative growth. This branch is no longer viable.
Oh, I was gonna say, what if he just exploded?
Closure imperative. Cut losses. Liquidate. Immediate liquidation.
Boo. Flushed himself down the toilet.
He's gone back to his natural form. He was only held in that state by particle radiation. That's why I never left that machine.
You mean he's in there now?
Oh, yes?
Well, we could make a hole in it.
Do you think he'll come out again?
Well, you could put the plug in if you want.
Well, we could.
I don't understand.
Well, we could take the chair and throw it over the wall.
Well, if you'd seen a Usurian, you know what I mean. They look like sea kale with eyes. I mean, would you take orders from a lump of seaweed? Huh? Kodo?
No.
You did something clever.
Well, I think it... What do you think, K9? K9 thinks it was clever.
Oh no, the game.
I am so sorry, K9.
Apologies
Meh.
No, shut up while I apologize. I am so... Listen, as soon as I've reset the coordinates, we'll finish that game of chess.
I mean, I'm sure he has in his memory of exactly where all those pieces were, but... Alrighty.
All right, so it turns out that the collector is an alien, a Usurian.
Yes.
Who literally has been sent there to take over this particular solar system for his planet. Rather than military conquest, it was economic conquest.
Yes. And they were doing something. But at least it was something that benefited their species. Yeah. So... it's exactly what would happen if the Ferengi were able to conquer anybody.
And again, these people were the Ferengi before the Ferengi were the Ferengi, because they didn't come in until the 1980s or early 90s.
Yeah, they started off in Next Gen.
Yeah.
I'm going to say season 1 or season 2. Yeah. So
that's what, 89 and 90, isn't it?
Something like that. Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting thing, and as goofy as this was, it's really interesting and fun.
The underlying message is something we're, again, seeing 50 years later, rampant capitalism. You know, that capitalism without any kind of equity is tyranny.
Yeah, so, and all you got to do is just grab the guy, throw him off. I love that he stayed, like, exactly the same pose as he went down, too. That just made it all the funnier. So, because honestly, I didn't know what they were going to do, and I was kind of joking, like, oh, just take, like, the gravel and just chuck it. It would be like a stoning, but it wouldn't hurt as much as an actual stoning, but...
been pebbled.
Yeah, I was not expecting them to just throw him off the wall and kill him, so... All right. That was interesting. I can definitely see the tone shift, but if the stories are more like this, it can work out, definitely.
And Leela actually did wound somebody instead of just outright killing them.
Yes, and I was thinking, because, let's see, what was the last episode where she threw that knife? See, now I can't remember.
Wasn't it in the one with the robots? Then she hit the robot and it didn't work because he was a robot.
Well, there was that. In Towns of Wang Chang, she did throw it at the doll, Mr. Sin, and it didn't work. So I'm trying to think if she's done that at all this season. So, I don't know. I like that to be the consistent thing, that she always throws it, and it never really works. But this time it did, at least, to injure that guy. Yeah. So, although I like that guy was, he was questioning himself for a second, because like, wait a minute, I'll die too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was interesting. But yeah, so, the kind of maybe the weirdest part, and this is such a minor thing, but I think the weirdest part of this was at the beginning when there was like just this hole in the wall, just like 10 feet up, that was talking to Cordo about his death taxes. And then there wasn't really anything like that. Again, like everything else, like, yes, they're in these, extravagant rooms and these, flamboyant people, but there was never anything as weird as just, for some reason, there's a hole 10 feet in the air that talks to you about your taxes.
The first time I saw it, I was thinking it looked a lot like what they used to call the joke wall on Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. But yeah, just that, that's part of the bureaucracy, that nameless, faceless person who says, hey, this is what your taxes are, and and then that's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right, it is some, it's not incongruous, it certainly fits in with everything else.
Yeah.
But then not to see it again or anything else like that, yeah, that's kind of
it's just unusual. The other stuff, the other out there corporate stuff wasn't in that sort of weirdness as just, there's a hole in the wall 10 feet up that you got to talk to. So yeah, let's see. It is interesting. We can talk about the title just for a second, because that's what we do. We complain about titles for no reason. And while this is accurate, they did make sons. It's an interesting idea for the title, because them making the sons almost has nothing to do with it. It's like, well, yes, that's who they are. They made the sons for the people to, live. Although none of them can experience those suns, because they're all the workers. Only the elite can experience those. But yeah, it's just sort of a bit of a strange title, but not entirely too out there.
Yeah, I was thinking two titles. One basically just a variation. The other, they could have just called it The Company.
Yeah,
because that's what it was about. And then right there at the end, when we finally learn that the collector is a Usurian, it could have just been the Usurian Company.
Yeah. Or, if you want to go closer to the naming title, or the naming schemes of these episodes, you could have gone with the Company of Death.
Yeah.
And that would have fit in with plenty of episodes. But yeah, so that's our weekly nitpick about the titles that don't matter.
Now, the other thing, and again, I mentioned this back in episode 1, the Gatherer's outfit.
Yeah.
So did not fit with anything else. But
yeah,
I kind of understand it in that he thought of himself as more elite and therefore was going to do whatever he could to make himself stand out.
Yeah.
But again, it was contrary to everything else. I mean, he could have taken like the outfit that Marn was wearing and decorated it more, put a cape on, put a more elaborate headdress or something like that. But the fact that it was vaguely ancient Egyptian looking, although, that does fit in with the fact that these are people from Earth and he's going back to, the wealthy pharaonic Egyptian families and things like that. So It's a minor quibble, but it just, again, I looked at that, who was the costumer or the director who said, you know what, let's make this guy look like a pharaoh of ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
When everybody else is in, again, this mid-20th century, 1950s industrial outfits, with the hats and the overalls and everything. So
the one credit I will give it, compared to something like robots of death. Not to ignite those comments again, but one thing with robots of death is that everybody looks like that, but it's still weirdly out of place for that. Whereas this, at least the credit is it's only him, so it does sort of fit into his character. You know, the collector, he's just dressed, you know, as much as he needs to. It's like, all right, I've got this. It's vaguely, you know, professional looking. All right, fine. It's just what I need while I do, you know, all my business and everything. Everybody else has a more industrial look, but this guy specifically, to feed into his ego and his class and everything, has specifically made himself as flamboyant as he could. And yes, it's strange, it's weird, it's mismatching, doesn't really fit with everything else, but neither does he. So I can at least give it that credit of it works for his character.
He's the Plutonian Elton John.
Yes, specifically. So, but yeah, let's see. But yeah, we had everything with the giant credit card. Man, imagine if credit cards were that size. I mean, I don't know. I assume, I don't really know the history of credit cards. I assume they've all been the same size for 50 years.
The difference, of course, now we have card readers and everything. Back then, what you had to do was you handed your card to the clerk, whoever was doing the business with you. They put it into this machine. Then they had to put a multi-copy piece of paper over the top of it. Then they ran a press across it because all the raised letters were then imprinted in carbon copies across what you were doing. Then they ran it back. They gave you your card back. They gave you signed it so that your signature was on all the copies. And then they gave you one copy. The company that you were buying from had a copy. And then you sent the third copy off to, you know, Bank Americard or MasterCharge, which are now Visa and I guess MasterCard.
Yeah. Well, because I have sort of been a little curious about that. Because, I was like, well, wait. It can't be exactly how credit cards are now, or even before, you know, all the chips and stuff, where it's like, well, it can't just be the swiping it in and everything, because they wouldn't have the systems to have done that in 1970. So, I didn't really know that sort of history of the credit card. You know, one thing I don't like, and this is going to be completely random and off topic, I hate that because there's the card, that the strip on the back, to me, at least seems useless. Because sometimes if it's like, oh, the chip reader is not working or something, so I go in to try to do the swipe, and it's like, this has a chip, you need to use the chip. And it's like, well, the chip wasn't working. And then, of course, I do it, and the chip works finally. Yeah. And it's like, so why do I have the strip on it then, if only the chip is going to be taken from this card?
There may be some readers that will not accept the chips yet. I still see those occasionally.
Yeah, it's just sort of a strange thing. And I guess it's just that if the system has both, it just defaults to the chip. Although it seems strange, like, if you have a system that still has both, shouldn't the strip work just as well as the chip?
It should, yes.
Yeah.
I also wonder if there are cards for, how do I say this delicately, people of more modest income, that's literally a distinction, that if you have, you know, an income, a yearly income over a certain amount, that you get the chip card, and if you have under a certain amount, you only get the magnetic band or whatever, electronic band on the back. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's why you come here for the Doctor Who. You stay for the theories about credit cards and how they work. So, anywho. But luckily, again, they're not as gigantic as the card he was using. So,
but the colors of that card, that was the original Bank America card.
Yeah,
the golden, blue, and white.
Yeah. So, expected on a History Channel show, the credit cards that built America or something, and it's all dramatic about these competing companies. So,
well, it all started. Now this is going to sound strange. It actually started not with a credit company, but something called the Diners Club. It was a nationwide, maybe even international club where you could use the card to pay for specific restaurants that accepted that card. Then, if I recall correctly, the card that made credit cards acceptable was the American Express card. And then Bank of America, again, issued the Bank America card, but that was too much, so they changed it to Visa. And then I don't remember which bank started. It may have been one of the New York banks that started what was originally called the Master Charge, and then became just the MasterCard, and that's what it is still today.
So yeah, we had everything with, they kept mentioning the Ajax. We never saw them. So I mean, I guess eventually they rose up with the rest of the people in the revolution, but we never really got much on who they are. You know?
I'd be interested to know if somewhere in the time period of the mid 1970s that there was some group in the UK who's either an anagram for Ajax or something like that were, these were like the Luddites, the people who were rising up against the Industrial Revolution back in the 1700s.
Yeah, so... because it was specific that immediately when they see the Doctor, they think it's an Ajax rebellion, specifically. But it seemed that none of the Undercity people were like that, so... we had the whole rousing speech that Leela gave to see who would go and help her save the Doctor, and it's interesting. I mean, it makes sense, the whole, because she's going on, bravery and honor and all this, classic sort of warrior, almost Klingon stuff, and everyone else is thinking, well, I don't really know the guy, so I'm not really I don't need to do it. But I like that only one of them went, and it was Cordo, specifically, this sort of meek employee who decided to go with her, and that, honestly, that definitely earns her respect. So,
but I mean, when you think about it, I would suspect the reason he did that is because he had nothing to lose.
Yeah,
he was already in line to be executed because he couldn't pay his taxes. He was trying to kill himself when they rescued him.
Yeah,
so it's like, sure, I'll go along because what else? Either I get killed or we change the situation.
Yeah, and you know what? Now that I think about the whole thing of the taxes, and if you can't pay it right then, you're screwed, because they then start charging so much interest that you'll never be able to pay it off. It does remind me, there was an episode with the 13th Doctor that's kind of like that, and I'm trying to think if there was another one too, but there was one, but it was more of a commentary on Amazon and like Amazon workplaces and stuff. It wasn't an amazing episode, but it was kind of interesting. But yeah, it kind of reminds me of that, because as I was sort of thinking about that, like, oh yes, and the Doctor comes in, they don't jump, and then there's all this stuff and this whole commentary. It's like, this kind of feels like a modern episode, just stretched out in the normal classic Who format. Yeah. But I could definitely see this with another one. The other thing I could think, this isn't really about commentary on economics or government or regulations or anything, but there's a Ninth Doctor episode. It's one of his last ones that's actually a commentary on like reality shows and stuff. Like the Doctor accidentally gets trapped in reality shows in the future, but it turns out when you're eliminated from the reality show, you're dead. So
there's actually a Arnold Schwarzenegger movie called The Running Man that's like that.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen part of that. Yeah. I think
it's interesting. I mean, it's really cheesy. I mean, it's kind of like some of the stuff we saw here, but it's interesting.
Yeah. So,
and again, I'm thinking late 70s. There, the first oil crisis was about 1973. The second one didn't come till the early 80s, but then the Thatcher government also came in the early 80s. There was the Falklands War, so the economy was probably in turmoil in Great Britain during this time, and this is just a commentary on that.
Yeah, so let's see. We had everything with the PCM in the air, stoking the fear, and that was interesting, because at first I was like, okay, what is the purpose of it? But then you're right, that's how they control the masses until eventually that's shut off. And only, once K9 tells Leela about it, that she's like, oh, so there's nothing actually for me to fear. Okay. And then she pretty much doesn't, because she can overcome that more than anybody else. Yeah. And I must say, it's really nice having K9, actually. Because we joked about it in The Invisible Enemy, where it's like, it's fascinating watching this sort of primitive-esque hunter and this brilliant robotic dog with a laser gun, and watching them go and murder people, and it's interesting to watch. So it's an interesting
tail.
Yeah, he wags his tail, and and occasionally, like, if if they say something, it's like, oh no, not that canine, and the tail goes down a little bit. So it's interesting, just that sort of dynamic. So yeah, and it also feels like, especially in this episode, because we were talking about, the dynamic of the cast sort of, settling in, especially now. It feels like now the cast is sort of accepting, like, okay, yes, we're going to have to act off of a robotic dog. And we all just gotta live with that and just, keep in the back of our head that we're getting paid to do this, at least. Because, yeah, it definitely feels... I'm sure it would be kind of weird, especially... I would probably imagine for Tom Baker, too, after how many seasons he's done, to suddenly be like, okay, yes, you have your new companion. She's very different from your previous one, but, it's all fine. And here's a robotic dog. Now sell it. And he's a good enough actor. They both can sell it. But it must just be a strange thing when Tom Baker looked at that like, okay, what are we doing? Yeah. Why are you making me do this?
If it gets the ratings up, you got to do it.
Yeah, so it's all for the kids. So
can you hear the beagle in the background?
Yeah, speaking of dogs.
He's probably chasing a squirrel.
Yeah. See, I wish he had a laser like K9. Then those squirrels would be dead. Anyway. So yeah, it was interesting. So luckily, when they explained later about the Collector being an alien, now I understand why he would have information about the Time Lords and of Gallifrey.
Yeah.
And I like how they say it was developmental potential very low on Gallifrey, because they wouldn't do that. Yeah. So, but that was funny. And then we had everything with the execution where they were going to steam Leela to death, but luckily got her out of there. So it's interesting. It's a creative thing to do, and especially too after when she was pending, tied up in the straitjacket and just sort of hung against the wall like that. It's like, this is a weird place to put her, but you can only imagine, because the doctor and the other guy were just on the beds. Obviously, she would not sit still, so they had to sort of suspend her from the wall. But yeah, the steamer, it's different. It's not vaporization or anything like. I mean, I guess it is to an extent, but it's a clever way of killing somebody.
And I think they may have done that because, let's face it, if it had been an incinerator, like a cremation thing, the idea of burning alive, that would really frighten the kids. So if you said we're going to steam her, they'd go, oh, it's going to make it very hot, and she will. So it's a less frightening image to be put into a boiler.
Yeah. Well, and that also reminds me of the old Dalek movies that we watched, where they didn't have lasers; they had these weird fire extinguishers, and we're like, what? That's not really what the Daleks do. They've got these lasers and stuff, and you could have had the budget to show that, actually, but then it's like, well, if they do that, or if they have like flamethrowers, that's too much for the kids in the audience, and it's like, they can take it. Now, maybe not this. This was probably a good idea instead of an incinerator, but oh well. But, I mean, they had a cliffhanger where the doctor was being drowned, so kids can take anything. So, but yeah, so we had everything with the revolution and chucking the Gatherer over the side with no hassle whatsoever. And I was really hoping that would also happen to the Collector, just because it would be funny if they also picked up his chair and threw it over as well. So, but yeah, the Collector is a Usurian, who came in, picked up all the humans, put them on Mars. Mars ran out of habitation, picked them up, moved them to Pluto. And it's interesting, I get why they say it's like, oh, you didn't go to the other planets, because they're gas giants, that makes sense. But you didn't go to any of those moons.
Yeah, Titan, there's several probably moons of Jupiter and Saturn, where there is enough, water and land area that they could have done that.
Yeah. Or if you're going to all this trouble to making something like Pluto habitable to humans, you could have probably done the same thing on Venus or Mercury. Maybe I could see Venus being like, well, there's too much you'd have to clean up about that. But Mercury, that's just a rock. It's just a rock in the sun.
But yeah, it's too close to the sun. It'd probably be.
Yeah, so. They'd probably have to put in too many cooling systems or something. Here, at least you have the steamer. It keeps everything nice and warm, and the homemade suns. So, but yeah, and it's interesting. I like how at the end, and I don't think this is what I'm thinking, but when he completely shrinks down after his existential crisis, and the doctor says he had to adopt that form because otherwise he's just a little lump of seaweed. And do you think seaweed is going to be that threatening? And in my head, I was like, no, I don't think seaweed is threatening. It wasn't threatening in Fury from the Deep, and it wouldn't be threatening now. And I was like, there's no way that, like, 10 seasons later, they're making a joke about one of those episodes. But
sentient seaweed.
Yeah.
Mind boggles.
Yeah, so... but I was really hoping, because as he was like getting more and more green, I was like, oh my gosh, please, I hope he just explodes and there's just green guts on all of them. But that might have been a little too much. I could see one of those magazines complaining about that.
So they put a cork in him, just kept him in his little container.
Yeah, just left him there, and I'm sure eventually they took that chair and threw it somewhere. Yeah. So, but yeah, and now the human race can go back to Earth, which I guess they kind of set that up. What was it, season 12? I guess when they did the Sontaran experiment, and it was like, oh, here's the Earth, and it's completely nice and good again, and there's no mark of humanity whatsoever. So this could just be a sort of follow up to that. So, but yeah, so. Interesting episode. Definitely a sort of departure in the tone, but I mean, as long as it's good in that departure of tone, I'm all for it. So, alrighty. Next up, next week we've got Underworld. And is this... Okay, no. Which is another 4-parter. So, Underworld. That's a very basic, simple title. And also... should be very easy to be in the episode. As long as they go under a world, it'll work. They did that in this episode anyway. So, but yeah, that'll pretty much be it. You got anything else?
I got nothing.
Then, with all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist for all of our Doctor Who classic reactions, as well as another playlist for all of my modern Doctor Who reactions if you want to go check those out. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.